Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The story that takes the lead in today's edition for Friday 21st of June 2024 and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. Canada announces new financial support for Caribbean region. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Welcome back. Chairman of the Caribbean Development Bank's Board of Governors and Canada's Minister of International Development, Ahmed Hussein, has announced new financial support for countries in the region. Mr. Hussein says Canada is also interested in helping with technical and vocational training, which he believes can help young people obtain the skills necessary to access the jobs of the future. He adds they've heard the region's call for the reform of international financial institutions.
Colleagues, I'm pleased to join you to announce $11.2 million in new funding to support key initiatives in the Caribbean region. This includes $5 million to the Inter-American Development Bank's Compete Caribbean Plus to help create an enabling environment for economic growth and investment in the region. $4.2 million to the Environmental Foundation of Jamaica to address the inadequate availability of climate-adapted infrastructure in urban communities. And finally, a $2 million top-up to the UNFPA to advance sexual and reproductive health and rights for women and girls in Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago. Canada is exploring legislation to allow us to respond to innovative instruments that development banks are proposing and to increase their lending room so that their borrowing members can access those funds. And these innovative approaches and suggestions have come from the region. We know about the Bridgetown Initiative and other initiatives and conversations and the suggestions from the leaders in this region are actually forming the foundation for change in the multilateral development banks. We've also integrated climate-resilient debt clauses into our sovereign lending so that we take into consideration the option of providing relief to borrowers experiencing climate crisis and natural disasters.
In the meantime, the CDB will be taking a critical look at its future direction as it seeks to remain relevant. This was revealed by Acting President Isaac Solomon.
We'll be taking a look together this in the next 2 days at a few crucial questions. What does our next decade look like? Where can we be most relevant? Where can we move the needle in the most meaningful way possible? And how can we ensure impact through the 2020s and into the 2030s? Improving institutional frameworks through digitalization and the rise of generative artificial intelligence. After all, we can't allow for a continuation of the digital divide between rich and poor that has plagued us. Enhancing our pool of human capital by reducing skills gaps and developing career pathways. Creating an environment that will strengthen energy security and stabilize costs. And improving logistics to boost intra-regional trade and food security. Across all these challenges, I come to the same conclusion. None of us can do it alone.
HGP's Travis Chase reports that the United States is prepared to share high-level information about officials involved in public corruption with the government of Guyana. The list of involved individuals could be extensive.
As the People's Progressive Party civic government seeks to find out from the United States Who else within its ranks are engaged in public corruption? Considering recent sanctions against 3 Guyanese and their businesses, United States Ambassador Nicole Theriot told media operatives that she has urged her Washington counterparts to share such information with the government.
I strongly recommended to our partners back at in Washington that they provide as much of that information as possible, because I understand that the government here wants to do their own investigation.
Vice President Barrett Jackdaw told a press conference last Thursday that the Finance Minister and the Commissioner General of the Guyana Revenue Authority have written to the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control and the Internal Revenue Service seeking more information following the sanctions.
I was very clear in my request that we want to be able to share as much as humanly possible, because we want to be very transparent. The government of Guyana has been very transparent with us, and we want to do the same in return.
The U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control accused Nazar and Azruddin Mohammed of allegedly evading $50 million in duty taxes to the Guyana government by allegedly omitting more than 10,000 kilograms of gold from import and export declarations between 2019 and 2023. The U.S. also accused May Thomas of using her position as permanent secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs to offer benefits to Mohammed's enterprise and Azruddin, among others, in exchange for cash payments and high-value gifts.
We have a wonderful partnership with the government of Guyana, and we want them to be able to take that information and do with it what they need to do.
The government has already sent May Thomas on leave, and she has resigned from her position on the Central Executive Committee of the PPPC, while at the same time, the foreign exchange license of the Mohammeds has been cancelled. Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick,
in association with our friends at
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Both the People's National Movement and the United National Congress celebrated victories in 2 by-elections on Monday. The Elections and Boundaries Commission confirmed the Lagoa Indian Walk by-election in favor of the PNM and Quinamon Diablo for the UNC. The EBC reported a higher voter turnout in both districts than the 2023 local government elections. CNC3's Kevin Feldman reports.
When the PNM's Pastor Otley Grantham and UNC's Nicole Gopal squared off in the August 2023 local government elections, it ended in a tie. But according to the Elections and Boundaries Commission, Grantham won 592 more votes than Gopal in Monday's Lagoa Indian Walk by-election. Political scientist Dr. Bishnu Raghunath told CNC3 News that the PNM won because it campaigned as if it was a general election. Dr. Raghunath said the difference between victory and defeat was not about parties' ability to sway voters to their sides. Instead, it was about which party got more supporters to go to the polling stations. If the PNM can follow this trend of getting voters out in next year's general election, Dr. Raghunath believes there could be implications for the Moruga Tableland constituency.
Then it would suggest that what the PNM did was simply to treat this not as a local government election, but rather as a referendum on the UNC and its representative in Moruga Tableland, particularly so when the MP for the constituency was the former councillor for that particular electoral district.
While Grantham and Gopal said they were on the ground for months, political analyst Dr. Shane Mohammed said the PNM never left the campaign trail, with Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley assigning key government officials to the campaign. He said Dr. Rowley also led from the front by visiting the electoral district, something he added opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar should have done instead of focusing on the UNC's internal election campaign.
The UNC has some serious work to do in terms of ensuring that what is in their hand they hold on to, and then they start making inroads into and setting the groundwork with credible candidates in the other critical seats that will determine the outcome of a general election.
According to Trade and Industry Minister Paula Gopi-Skun, Grantham's victory also secured an additional alderman in the Princestown Regional Corporation. There have been no requests for recounts in either of the electoral districts. Kevin Feldman, CCHT News.
Jamaica's opposition PNP is advocating for rule changes to make it easier for Jamaicans abroad to serve in Parliament locally, despite a recent recommendation to restrict parliamentary seats to solely Jamaican citizens. CVM's reporter Andrew Laidley has more.
Opposition leader Mark Golding is pushing for a review of rules to enable more Jamaicans living abroad to participate in public representation. This follows the Constitution Reform Committee's recent recommendation that only Jamaican citizens and not those with dual citizenship should sit in the country's parliament. Golding lobbied for inclusive policies on day 2 of the 10th Biennial Conference in St. James.
We are going through a process of looking at our Constitution, and part of that dialogue must involve a discussion around what it is to be a Jamaican. I personally am of the view that we can't take a myopic, insular approach to this, given the realities of who we are and that we're spread all over the world and how dependent we are on each other. Our rules around who can participate at whatever level, in my opinion, should reflect that reality and should be inclusive rather than discriminatory or exclusionary.
Golding's call comes amid concerns about his dual citizenship and his apparent hesitation to relinquish his British passport. Other public officials, including Government Minister Matthew Samuda and the opposition's Julian Robinson, have faced similar scrutiny in recent weeks. Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the opposition leader both support allowing diaspora members to serve in Parliament. However, their views diverge on the matter of dual citizenship and the pursuit of high office, such as Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition. While the Prime Minister did not directly respond to Golding's suggestion on Tuesday, he did take a moment to acknowledge the diaspora for its contributions locally, particularly during the COVID pandemic.
I want to recognize and place on record the appreciation of the government for the tremendous support and contribution of the diaspora. As mentioned by the Leader of the Opposition and Minister Johnson Smith, when tourism earnings fell off, went down to literally zero, it was the members of the diaspora that shared their income with their Jamaican family.
Meanwhile, for the first time in the island's history, Jamaica has retained $5.1 billion in reserves.
The size of the reserve acts as a protection for your foreign exchange rate. You have all of this reserve and look at all the problems in the country. The moment you don't have the reserve is the moment you have problems. So what has changed in Jamaica is that Jamaica is now building buffers and reserves.
Andrew Laidley for CVM News.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean.
In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Tillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.